So this is a pot, Moors, that people ask about, and every time I see somebody go, they call it, oh, it's his Moors Kochanski stove. Pot, I'm sorry. We'll get that.
Knife stove.
Yeah. Moors Kochanski stove knife pot. But can you tell us a little bit about this pot?
Yeah, but first I'll say about using surnames. You know, if you blow your own horn, it doesn't sit well with people. But if somebody else blows your horn for you, there's no music sweeter than someone else blowing your horn for you. It's sort of, you know, not so good manners to blow your own horn.
All right, so this is the public labels this as the Moors Kochanski.
Yeah,
it's not called the Moors
Kochanski. I have to call it the skookum pot because it's kind of there's something off there about me saying this is the Kochanski pot. I didn't invent it. I found it in existence. Tom Roycroft gave me a pot that was packed in the Royal Canadian Air Force survival kits, and he said, you know, I've used this pot and it strikes me that pot seems to be pretty close to being just right. 7 cups of tea for 7 people, or boil water and cook and everything for 1 person. You don't want something too big, you don't want something too small. The other thing about this is the handle is indestructible, so that you can't have an accident and have spillage on account of the handle breaking. Then these handles here, they're not necessary, but some people like that to be able to pour with the pot. Then a lid that fits tight enough that there's a minimum of spillage when it falls, and a ring that keeps you from losing your pot by tying it back to that as you travel. I've found many lids laying on the forest floor that got lost off of pots. So
Don, I want one of these pots too. Okay, we're good.
So you mangle this to the extent that when you put it on, you mangle it so that when your pot is full of water and you drop it, the lid shouldn't come off, and most of the water should stay in the pot. Most of the soup should stay in the pot, so that you know. Now this is also an option, but you know, between this, so this might have originally been more of a coffee pot, and there might have been a percolator inside. But all these things, and it's an excellent pot. Now Dawn anodizes them black.
Okay.
When I had discussions, I got an old manual used by plumbers, teaching apprentice plumbers in the UK. They had all kinds of stuff about reflectivity and so on, and they said a black pot will come to a boil with half the fuel that a shiny pot will. So the shininess on the outside of the pot, you're fighting against it, and it's reflecting a lot of the heat, and if it's black, and so on, and on and on. Now I could talk longer. Maybe the pot should have rounded corners and everything, but for general purposes and availability, you're just like when I pick up this Mora knife and I say, you just asked me, what does a good survival knife look like? And I'll say it looks like that. But I'll say this is not a survival knife because maybe it should be more durable. But for the price, it's an extremely functional knife. And same with this pot. You know, somebody might come up with something better. Maybe something that goes on that you have a controller over the spout, so you don't lose through the spout. And when you put the lid on, maybe you take a little bit of a turn and it's locked on there unless you turn it. You can really go off. Maybe. Now, if I have a pot that's twice as big, I can actually pack a much more comprehensive kit. And there are pots like this that I have found in the Value Village and so on, that it gives me more room. Because to me, a good survival kit would be a good pot. Put one of these rods in there for fire lighting, and that longer pot allows me to put that knife in there, and then I stuff in a down jacket that I buy at Value Village. Now that jacket, I call it double stuffed because I get 2 jackets, one as cheap as possible, and the other one, you know, I like the jackets to be a little longer and so on because they're my sleeping bag from about mid-May to mid-September. And I find one seam that I take apart in that jacket, and I don't have this here because I travel long distance.
Yeah.
And you take the down from the other jackets and double the amount of down. That's called a double stuffed, and that probably really improves its value because it's how hard it is for you to substitute for down jacket, and how it virtually takes the place of a sleeping bag. Now the down jacket should have down in the sleeves. You don't have to increase the down there. But if that's synthetic filler, it'll bulk up the situation, and you'll find that it bothers you that it's taking more space than it should. So here you got the metal rod, you got the knife. Now usually you're wearing the knife on the outside, but some people say I'd like to have a second knife maybe. And then you've got we talked about this. What's that about?
I don't know.
Well, we'll have to take a break. We usually in here we have about 15 minutes.
Yeah, whatever you want.
So here it's kind of awkward to put a down jacket in there.
Can't imagine.
You can if you work really hard, but you can't get anything else in there.
Right.
Well, now we choose to put this stuff in. Now this is windproof, rainproof, very shiny. And if it was black, it would be very, very ideal, but you can't have everything absolutely. Now I'd also, doesn't take much room, a clear polyethylene would go in there. And that's almost it. And oh, there's string, paracord. And this here
and that's
also.
His kit. That's what he goes out.
Yeah, we're talking about a few things. Me, a really, really good survival kit is a pot big enough to accommodate the down jacket and the knife and the string and whatever.
And one of those
Tape
long
it.
saws.
Yeah, the saw blade can coil in there.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Or you might be wearing it around your waist, so it might be separate because it's awkward to really. You can rip off your ear or the tip of your nose or rip off a finger. Then things are, when they uncoil, when you're trying to coil them, and this is a rather tight curl, so you carry that in your waist. Theoretically, you could carry the saw in your waist, the knife around your neck, and many people attach the rod to the knife case, and then they got all those there, and then whatever is left. If I take a pot and I put in a down jacket and then seal this, now that survival kit walks circles around the ones that have a gazillion little things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, surely you can catch a fish, maybe you can catch a rabbit, but you can have, the material. Now, usually the rule can be that you have to have 7 arm spans of paracord.